What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Human Predator Packmule podcast. This episode is a Q&A episode. So you just have me, and I got 3 good questions that I am pulling from an Instagram story that I posted the other day. If you're not following us on Instagram yet, and why aren't you? It's at Human Predator Packmule. And pretty often I post questions on there, the opportunity to ask me questions that I can answer either on there or here on the podcast. And for some reason, you guys always ask more questions when I'm going to do it on a podcast rather than just answer you right on Instagram. So I don't know if I'm going to just ask them on Instagram anymore. I think I'm just going to say, hey, I'm doing a podcast. What questions do you have? But anyway, we have 3 good questions that we're going to answer today. And one is about strength endurance training. One is about running. If you're a tactical type folk, it must be a tactical guy, an operator, some kind of operator that asked the question. There's a very inconspicuous, they don't even have their picture on them. So, and then another question asking me about bird dogs. Now that I did a chuckar hunt last week, I'll tell you about that. And then, 2 chuckar hunts. And then I will answer the question about bird dogs. So let's get into it. The first question is general volume and intensity structure of a strength endurance session. So for us, we use 2 different methods. And then within those methods, different applications of the methods to develop strength endurance. So the first is eustress training, which I'll explain. And then the second is high intensity continuous training, which I'll also explain. So we'll start with eustress training. So eustress training is a form of strength training. We use big lifts to do it. You should use big lifts to do it. There's twofold. Yes, it's to develop strength endurance, but it's also a mental tactic, a mental skills stimulus, so that you have to respond to a stimulus and not let it stress you out, and essentially improve your mental skills, but also improve your ceiling for dealing with stress. And so what you would do during a eustress training session is keep your heart rate under 150 the whole time, while picking a weight that makes you at least a little bit nervous, right? So like, can I do this for the set amount of time that's prescribed, or the set amount of reps? And we'll talk more about that when we talk about the volume and intensity. And so you keep your heart rate under 150 the whole time. And for us, what we do is we go again once our heart rate reaches 160 minus our age. So you have these 2 buffers that keeps you relatively in constant movement, and you have to stay with the implement that you're using the whole time. So it's like, if you're deadlifting, you can't do your deadlift set and then walk around the gym. You deadlift, you stay at the bar. When your heart rate hits 160 minus your age, you go again. So, and then high intensity continuous training. Let's just explain that before I move on. High intensity continuous training is also a strength endurance method, but it's much higher volume than eustress training is. And so basically what its goal is to develop the fast twitch, the aerobic abilities of your fast twitch fibers, which eustress training can help do that as well. But the higher volume and the little bit faster pace is going to be better at that. High intensity continuous training is going to do a better job of that than eustress training will. I think eustress training is going to give you more of a nervous system adaptation to strength endurance than an actual local muscular adaptation. And so with high intensity continuous training, we do it in a couple different ways. We do it in a more specific way with doing box step ups with our pack, but we also do it with regular conventional lifts, but in a format that is high volume, but still relatively heavy weight for the amount of volume that we're doing. And so high intensity continuous training, you would do 1 rep every 4 to 5 seconds, or you would do 2 reps every 10 seconds. Those are the 2 ways that we use it. And we do it with things like squats, with deadlifts, with box step-ups, like I said, with push-ups, with rowing variations, all different exercises to develop the aerobic abilities of our fast twitch muscle fibers. This stuff comes from Russia, and they learned about this a long time ago. And then some different strength coaches brought it over. So what would the sessions look like? So for a eustress training session, we look at 2 different things. We either look at the total reps that we want to do in a session, or we look at the total time. And since eustress training tends to be with heavier weights, we tend to keep the volume at 50 reps or under. And then we look at what the RPE, or rating of perceived exertion, we want at the end of that set, end of the session, but also the reps in reserve we want to keep with the weight, right? And so for most of the time with a eustress training session, we want to keep 3 to 4 reps in reserve at the end of each set. That's going to put you somewhere in the sweet spot where you can keep your heart rate under 150 typically. But we also are just going to look at that. And if you're having a hard time keeping your heart rate under 150, you're probably using too much weight. Like, we coach people to keep it probably mid 140s. You're going to get what you need out of the session. So we look at either total time, or we look at total amount of reps that we do in a session. Different psychological stimuli from each of those. It's just like going out and running 5 miles or going out for a 50-minute run, right? Because 5 miles, you can't predict when you're going to be done. But with the total time, you can predict when you're going to be done. You might not know the mileage, but you finish. Same kind of deal with eustress training. If you know you're doing 50 reps, you don't know how quickly it's going to take you. But if you're doing, a 20-minute set, you know how long it's going to take. So just slightly different psychological stimuli. So what we would look at is, one example would be if we're doing a relatively heavy eustress set, we would look at maybe we're doing 30 total reps of deadlifts with 3 to 4 reps in reserve, while 1 to 3 reps per set, while keeping our heart rate under 150. So that would be one example. We can also do that for time, right? So we could say we're doing a 20-minute set of deadlifts. You're just going to track how many reps you do. Same kind of parameters, 1 to 3 reps per set. As soon as let's say you hit 3, you do 3 reps. As soon as your heart rate gets back down to 120 minus your age, you go again, and you just go for as long as it takes for you to get to either do all the reps or to do all the time. And then you track either how long it took you to do it, or you track how many reps you did in the amount of time. And that's how you can track your progression. The biggest thing with eustress training is not turning it into a competition and trying to take more than what's there. And that's one of the things that we also lean on with coaching with that a lot, because people start to get competitive, or like, well, I did more last week, or this was different last week. And really, eustress training is it's about building strength, endurance, getting stronger over time. And typically you'll typically do more from week to week. But life happens, and there's extraneous variables that we can't always control. So the biggest thing is just to stay calm, stay in the moment, and take what's there. Sometimes you got to use less weight. Sometimes you're going to do fewer reps in the set amount of time, or it might take you longer to get to the rep count that you're supposed to get to. But the biggest thing is staying calm, not letting those kind of thoughts take over, and also not letting your nervousness, anxiety about whether or not you can do the set with the amount of weight that you're using take over. It's really, it's a great mental tool, but it is a great tool for building strength endurance. And those are the two kind of ways that we do it. We do it sometimes as supersets with like maybe a deadlift and a press, or a squat and pull, but a lot of times, and then we'll progress up to things like just doing a squat, just doing a deadlift, just doing a press, just a pull, whatever, to get more specific volume in each lift. So that's one way that we do strength endurance, and we do that with eustress training. High intensity continuous training, like a basic setup will be, we do 8-minute sets of 1 or 2 different exercises, right? So if we want to get more local stress, we'll just do 1 exercise at a time. If we want more global stress, we'll do like pairings, right? So for example, 2 reps of goblet squats every 10 seconds for 8 to 10 minutes would be one setup. Or we would do 8 to 10 minutes of alternating goblet squats and inverted rows every 2 reps every 10 seconds, and then doing that for 8 to 10 minutes. So those are 2 different setups that we do. And then with the high intensity continuous step ups with our pack on, we'll work up to sometimes even 20-minute sets with relatively heavy weight in our packs. So with that, we typically start with somewhere around 30%, depending on the person and their experience level, and work up to maybe even 40, sometimes 45% of body weight. And it's 1 rep every 4 seconds for alternating sides, right? So you do a step up with your left, 1, 2, 3, 4, step up with your right. And sometimes we'll do 10-minute sets. Sometimes we'll work up to 15-minute sets or 20-minute sets. And it's pretty gnarly, mostly because it's monotonous. It's not necessarily the physical tax that you feel. It's the monotony, and it's also the focus, because to make high intensity continuous training work the way that it's supposed to, each rep has to be snappy. You have to be fast, and you have to be using enough weight. Otherwise, you're not going to recruit fast switch motor units. And so the monotony of the high intensity continuous box step ups is another great mental tool. We typically do those in the summer. So like general preparedness phases of the year, like early in the year, we'll do more squats for high intensity continuous training rows, regular lifting movements, and then as we get closer to the season, we'll use things like high intensity continuous step ups for that. So those are two different methods of strength endurance, and those are the basic setups that we use to train for strength endurance. So I hope that answered your question. If you have follow-up questions, please you can respond on wherever you're watching this podcast. You can shoot me a DM on Instagram, or the next time I pose a question on Instagram, go ahead and ask a follow-up. So our next question, this one says, for the tactical crowd, can you train speed and power while running high mileage? Short answer, yes. Longer answer, it depends. I'll use an example of my business partner in my gym. He ran an ultra marathon. Well, he's run several ultra marathons, but during his ultra marathon training, he would do a lot of mileage training, but he would also have training phases and training blocks during which he did VO2 max training. But I think the biggest thing for that to understand is he had a very specific unidimensional goal, right? So he lifted and he ran a lot. And outside of that, he helped me run the business, and he was a family man. When it comes to tactical populations and in the environments that you guys have to function in, and being an operator, you have more variables, you have more training to do. That's going to be apart from your running, right? So whatever other strength conditioning you're doing, whatever skills that you're making sure that you keep up with, whatever phase you are in your job, there are other variables to account for. So high mileage, I guess we would need to define exactly what you mean by high mileage. So you can run high mileage and still include speed work with that. The thing is like, you can't just pile that on to everything else. So something else is going to have to come out. So if that's your goal, you got to think about, well, what else am I willing to give up to be able to do this, to still recover, to be able to maintain the other training that I need to do for my job and the other strength and conditioning that I need to do, because something's going to have to give. So technically, yes, you can. You could do 2 VO2 max of workouts per week. I mean, you also have to think about what you can tolerate and what you recover from. If you recover well from intensity, sure, you probably add a little bit more. But like, I know if I personally would try to do 2 VO2 max workouts per week with running, I would put myself in the shit can, even if I wasn't running. So it depends on what you're adapted to. It depends on what you adapt to well, and it depends on what else is going on in your training. So technically, yes, you can run high mileage, however you define that, and still do speed work, VO2 max, whether it's just sprints or whatever it might be. But I would be very, very diligent in tracking my recovery, whether you're looking at different measures like HRV, subjective measures, whatever it might be, making sure that you're on top of that. And I would take a really good look at all of the other aspects of my training. So I'm not going to sit here and give you a cut dried, like, blanket answer, because I don't know that there necessarily is one, other than yes, it is possible, but you have to be able to control for other factors and mitigate any other stresses that you might have coming from doing that. So I would also look at the type of speed work that you're doing. So VO2 max work, you're going to be run almost about as hard as you can for 3 to 5 sets, right? Sprinting is going to be different. Definite sprints, like 100-meter work, whatever, 100 meters or less, that's going to be different. So you're going to recover from all of these things in different ways and at different rates, and different people are going to have different abilities to do that. So I guess I need to ask you a follow-up question is like, what do you consider high mileage for you? And what other aspects of training do you need to account for to make sure that you have the balanced approach for you to be able to do your job, you're recovering, and you're also moving towards whatever goal it might be. So that would be the other question. It's like, well, what is the goal? Why do you want to run high mileage and do speed work? So if you want to send me a question back, we can get a more detailed answer going for that. But overarching, yes, you can do it. account for all the factors that I talked about, and make sure that you're monitoring recovery as closely as you can. But it is possible to run high mileage and also do speed work. But there's people that do it all the time. Most of them are specialized with running. And I don't know how good of an idea it is for an operator, unless that operator is very, very, very well adapted to running and very skilled with running, to make that choice. So the questions that I asked, I fire those back. As you send them to me, DM me on Instagram. Next time I ask a question, put them in there, whatever it might be. But that would be the follow-up that I would give to you. All right. So last week from when I'm recording, actually a week ago today, my assistant coach and my very good friend, Jordan Wilcher, took me on my first chuckar. And so we literally walked to the top of a mountain, like not a little, I'm not talking about like little Pennsylvania Ridge Mountains. I'm talking about Big Sumbitch in Nevada. And we walked to the top of that thing with his dog Matilda before we even started hunting. And when we got up there, we found a ton of birds. We literally, this is not an exaggeration. We flushed 300 birds, easy, 250 to 300 birds, easy. The issue was that those birds were spooky as shit. And so they were flushing at like 60, 80 yards. His dog did an incredible job finding birds. She did an incredible job pointing the coveys that it was possible to point. She did a killer job. But shot opportunities were just like very, very difficult to come by. And, if you've ever hunted chuckers, even the good flushes, like the shots are hard because chuckers are fast, the angles are weird, all that kind of stuff, which is something that I learned during that day. But birds were flushing 60, 80 yards out. So it was difficult to get a shot. It was just, what was incredible, like, first of all, was like looking at the mountain. I was excited. He points at where we're going. He's like, so he's like, I found a lot of coveys up there last time. I think we should go up there. And he points to the literal top of this mountain. I was like, all right, cool. I guess we're going up there. So I was excited about that. But the most impressive thing was watching Matilda work, not just work as like finding the birds, but also going up and down the mountain. Her fitness and her toughness, like, oh my God, she was incredible. Matilda is an orange roan American Brittany. Just a gorgeous dog and just sweet, but just watching her up and down the mountain, all over the mountain, find birds, point them. And she did some incredible, she had more than two, but like she had some great points. We only ended up killing one bird that day because we didn't have any shot opportunities. Like I said, Jordan made a great shot on a crosser and killed that bird. But it was just an incredible experience for a lot of reasons. First was watching the dog work, which I love watching dogs work whenever I'm hunting. The environment and just where chuckers live, just at the top of mountains and this gnarly shit, and going where you have to go to find them, and the physical test of doing that, getting up, still having your wits about you. Once you get to the top of the mountain, you still have a lot of walking to do, and then to keep yourself together to be able to shoot when the birds flush if you get the opportunity, And so I really enjoyed chuckar hunting. And then we went the next day with his dog. Well, Charlie popped out of the truck at the end and we chased some quail, but we were going to hunt with him the next day. So Jordan didn't want to run him too hard. And, but then the next day we took Charlie, and Charlie is an English setter, and Charlie can run big. Like he's a much bigger dog. He's really athletic, and he's just super enthusiastic and super loves running and finding birds. And he runs really big. And I posted on my personal Instagram account about him, of just how it was actually motivating to hunt behind him, because I wanted to push myself to keep up with him, first of all, but also watching how hard this dog was working. I mean, he was enjoying it, but watching how hard this dog was working just to find birds. It was just incredible to watch, and it was super, super duper fun. So the question is, now that you're around bird dogs, time for a dog. I mean, I've been around bird dogs for a long time. My buddy Brett has had 2 Boykins that we've hunted with for years. I've hunted with other people and their bird dogs. I will say, though, that the experience of chuckar hunting with Matilda and Charlie does make me want to get more into chuckar hunting and get a bird dog. So not yet. I'm not going to do it yet, because I still have my old girl Stella, who is a red-nosed pit bull. She's old. She's 13. She's going to be 14 in a couple months, and I'm not going to get a new dog until she goes, when I can for a couple reasons. One, to spend time with her, and then also because like taking on that, and then like having a new puppy, and I'm also, I just moved to California, and I'm likely going to move again relatively soon to either. Well, I'm not going to tell you what states I'm going to go to yet, but it just would be a lot to take on a new dog. But the experience of chuckar hunting definitely is persuading me to get a bird dog and to start hunting upland more. Like, I'm not going to stop big game hunting. I love hunting deer. I love hunting elk. I love all of that. But the one thing that I like about upland hunting is the seasons are so long, so it gives you way more opportunity to hunt. And I like the physical challenge, the physicality of chuckar hunting. Like, I'll hunt quail, I'll do all the other stuff too, but the physicality of chuckar hunting is a real draw for me. So I would like to get an orange roan Brittany, like Matilda, and I plan to name her Ruth. So whenever that happens, I'll make sure that you guys know, and I'll keep you abreast of that situation. But so yes, I think it is time for a dog. Not quite. It's almost time for a dog, I guess is what I should say. There is a dog in the future, is what I'll say. So yeah, I really love chuckar hunting. It was awesome, and I'm gonna go again at least once before the end of the season with Jordan. So I'm gonna drive over to Nevada and get at least one or two more chuckar hunts in with Jordan. So but those are the 3 questions for today. Before I let you go, I want to let you know that we're doing Backcountry Ready registration opens the week after Christmas. So the week between Christmas and New Year's, and is going to run until January 6th when we start the new program. Everybody that signs up to start with us in our early off-season program is going to get 2 really free, really badass free resources. First is a running guide for hunters. I've been working on that for a little while. It's going to be a badass free resource. I'm just going to give it to you. It walks through how to start with running, how to progress, warming up, trail running versus road running, a million different things that is going to help you if you're interested in getting started with running, or you want to progress your running because you know it's going to help your hunting fitness. You're going to get a free guide with that. I'm also going to write, I'm in the process of also creating an uphill and downhill training guide for hunter. So it's going to have everything from strength training to conditioning to mobility training, everything that you need to dial in your uphill and downhill training. And you're going to get that for totally free when you sign up for Backcountry Ready in the week after Christmas until January 6th. Now, easiest thing to do to make sure that you know what's going on and that you're able to sign up when it's time to go is to get on our newsletter list. And the easiest way to do that, I keep saying the easiest way, I'm like a fucking broken record, but the best way to do that is you're going to click on the link in the show notes to download 5 biggest backcountry training mistakes and how to avoid them, which is our free one of our other free training guides. That's going to put you on our newsletter list. I email 5 times a week with tips, stories, training advice, all kinds of stuff. So you'll get that, and you'll also get all of the notifications you need to know when registration opens, when it's closing, all that kind of stuff. So great questions, everybody. Thanks so much for asking them. And I will post on Instagram again soon, asking for questions for a Q&A podcast. So if you're not following us on Instagram already, it is at Human Predator Packmule. So go follow us, and when I ask your questions, send them in, and I will do my absolute best to answer them for you. So thanks so much, guys, and we will talk to you next.